National Autistic Society's SPELL framework is a socially valid mechanism for understanding and responding to autism. So there are 5 elements of the SPELL framework: structure, positive approaches and expectations, empathy, low arousal, and links. But it's important to note that this is a socially valid mechanism. In other words, all of us need structure in our lives. It makes our lives better and easier. We all need to be seen positively, valued, and allowed to pursue our interests. We all need other people to have empathy for our point of view and us theirs. We all need to reduce unhealthy stress and confrontation in our lives, and we all need to be treated fairly and consistently. So let's begin with structure. Structure makes the world more predictable and gives people a greater sense of control, thus reducing anxiety. We are all less stressed if we feel that we know what we are doing and have at least a very basic plan for the day. Structure is more than just a visual timetable. It is how the environment is set out to make it easy to navigate. It is whether a task is clearly set up, whether expectations are clearly shared, and where as much as possible the structure is one that is developed around the individual and not imposed by staff. It is not the same as a regimented routine where everyone does the same things. It plays to the strengths and visual memory of people with autism, and it's concrete. It helps to overcome problems of sequencing, and therefore it promotes independence. Good visual structure reduces the need to give lots of verbal prompts, which people with autism tend to find difficult and which can lead to prompt dependence. The following video clips illustrate structure being used in a variety of ways, and not just for people with autism.
Tomorrow night is Helen. Helen, tomorrow night?
One of the most often asked questions by people living in services is, who's on shift tonight? Who's on sleepover? This is often because the only way that they know what their life is going to be like is which staff are supporting them on that day. Structure allows people to have a good indication that they can refer back to of what's going to happen, who's going to be around and who will be supporting them.
And on night shift tomorrow night. Annie, right? A dog, you'll have to ask her when she comes in. Little Miko.
So it's not just about who's on shift, but also about what are we eating today? Where can I find my cup? And also about what are we doing? Where are we going? Or who's visiting us today?
So this is one of the wall planners that we use for the people with support here at Lavin Road. Sort of explains how Vincent's days go. So on a Wednesday, which is day off, he gets up and has his breakfast and then he does his washing because it's only right that he should. But Vincent isn't too keen on doing his washing. Not as a reward, but because he knows he's going to get a cup of coffee afterwards, he'll come along and he'll do the washing. And then his next picture that he'll get, that will pass on to him, is a picture of the hydrotherapy, because that's where he goes for a swim on a Wednesday. But then again, after the swimming on a Wednesday, he has a photograph of him eating food because he actually goes for a meal after that and he picks his own sandwiches and has a nice sandwich and enjoys it. His mum always visits on a Saturday. So we've got a picture of his mum with Vincent there. And on Saturday afternoon, he goes onto the exercise bike, which keeps him fit and whatever. And that's generally how it works for Vincent.
So the second element is positive approaches and expectations. Positive approaches is about not leaving the individual to their own devices, but sensitively and actively intervening to reduce the disabling effects of autism or other disabilities. It is about providing physical, emotional and educational support and enhancing self-confidence and self-esteem through encouragement as people try new things. Positive approaches and expectations is expecting that people can do things and will do things if we give them the right support. If we expect more, then we will get more. But we also have to balance this with the support that's given. Managers and staff should have positive expectations for the people that they support. Celebrating the changes, no matter how small, and having goals for the future is important. It's also about treating people as adults with respect and seeing people as capable, not just disabled. This is where active support is most important. It helps staff to help people to try new things, little and often, while maximising choice and control, with just enough help and support to experience success. We often hear staff say things like, oh, well, you won't get him to do anything. Oh, that's just William, that's just his autism.
Check these receipts,
But we know that with active support, it is possible to help people to try new things and to find things that they enjoy. The next few clips just illustrate the hope for the future, the positive experiences that people have, and the benefits of active support.
Good man, Steve. Well done.
And when I first started supporting Stephen, he wasn't even allowed in his kitchen. There was a locked gate. Okay, and he used to stand there looking in the kitchen. And now I think back to it, I think that must have been awful for him to be excluded like that, you know. And now he can just waltz in whenever he wants. He can open the cupboard door, he can get whatever he wants out. He's got his own cupboard with his own food in it. He goes and does his own shopping, he does his own cooking, does his own washing up. It's just amazing, amazing for him, you know. And he's doing it without you prompting him. We used to prompt him and go, Stephen, go and do this, Stephen, go and do that. But now he's just got that confidence himself to actually just go and do it. Well, I'm not waiting for you to tell me, I'm going to go and actually do it. People have got paid jobs, got voluntary jobs. One of the people I support's got a voluntary job in a church. And I'm really, really hoping within the next year that we can actually support him to go and actually drop him off. And he can do that himself. So we're not actually that support person. The people that are supporting him are the actual people that are working in the church.
Well, my vision for this service would be to be able to do the things that we're doing now, but give them even more structure and even more predictability, because in the short space of time that we've done that, I've seen such a massive improvement in Jacob's quality of life, as has everybody, the staff, his mum. Jacob still has behaviours, you know, and possibly always will, and we'll have to recognise that. But to see him, you know, maybe later on in life and those behaviours, you know, reduced until he gets to a point where he can gain more independence as well, that would be a marvellous achievement, I think, for all of us.
So the third element is empathy. And empathy is about developing an understanding of how the person you're supporting thinks, communicates, learns and experiences the world.
Chicken nuggets and fries.
Ooh, fries.
No. Jacob.
No. No.
No.
No.
Oh, right.
It is about careful assessment of the individual based on association and knowledge. It reflects the perspective of the individual and shows respect for the individual and their right to be different.
No, I don't want to.
That's fine. Okay.
Later.
Okay. Later.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Good idea.
You're going to be starving
Maybe
tomorrow.
hungry then.
Yeah?
Can I go to bed?
You've already seen a number of examples of empathy in the clips of support for Jacob in particular. It's not just an awareness of his autism, but also an awareness of his epilepsy, his sensory difficulties, for example. You also see lots of other examples of staff knowing people very well, sometimes based on assessment, but usually based on lots of experience of working with the person. One element of empathy is reducing language, and we've already discussed this in the previous section on communication. The fourth element is low arousal, and it's important to note that this is not the same as no arousal. Low arousal is about a calm, focused and planned intervention. It's about having an awareness of environmental and the sensory impact on the individual. Low arousal is about removing or reducing as much as possible any aversive or distractive stimuli, so that we can improve the person's ability to discriminate, for example, what they're meant to be doing at that point in time, and to concentrate on what they're meant to be doing. It is about a non-confrontational style of interaction, and it involves, for some people, a supportive rehearsal of potentially aversive events. So for example, if you're supporting somebody who has a fear of dogs, and this is stopping them from going out of their house, engaging in activities in the community that they really want to do, then it is necessary to do something to help the person to deal with this issue. But you wouldn't just take the person and put them in a room with a pack of dogs. You of course have to do this gradually and sensitively. You might first of all start with showing people, the person, pictures of a dog. And you might work up to having a dog in the garden outside of the house, through to perhaps having the dog in the room, and eventually through to hopefully having the person willing to have the dog relatively close to them. They don't have to come to like dogs or to want them to be around them all the time, but just to be able to cope with them being near them so that the quality of their life isn't affected. This next clip shows Carl when he's out bowling. Carl is somebody who doesn't actually like a lot of noise and very busy environments, but he does enjoy bowling. And here we see staff picking up on the fact that he's getting agitated as he rocks from foot to foot and offers to take him out and escorts him out so that he can have some fresh air and exercise away from the noisy environment of the bowling alley. And finally, Links. Links is about partnership with the individual themselves, with their relatives, with agencies and activities in the mainstream of society, and with the other agencies that provide support for an individual. It is about involving the person as much as possible in their own lives and the decisions that they make, and encouraging them to do so. But probably most importantly, for most of the people we support, it's about providing a very high level of consistency. Consistency is critical, and lack of consistency is a real issue, especially for people with autism and those with challenging behaviour. There needs to be an agreed way of working that is the person's preferred way, not the way staff want to do things. Most people with disabilities living in services come into contact with between 4 and 10 different staff in any week, all of whom might have their own equally valid way of making a cup of tea. But team meetings and even person-centred planning meetings need to collate the knowledge about the individual so that everyone is working the same way with an individual, preferably their preferred way. The final element of Links that I want to spend a little time on is about working with families. We have lots of examples of families helping out in services, not necessarily supporting their own relative, although of course many do come in to do things with their son or their daughter, their brother or their sister. But for example, helping out with someone's special interest, gardening with them or taking them out to a football match. Quite often families are viewed as difficult or interfering, but staff sometimes fail to put themselves in the family's shoes, and families are reluctant to embrace positive risk-taking for a whole variety of reasons. The next set of clips illustrates how Mel, the manager of the service where Jacob lives, used a team meeting to start to build rapport between the staff and Jacob's mum.
Organised a team meeting, and I asked Julie if she would talk to the staff about how it's been for her as a parent, bringing up, a child with a learning disability and autism and all the other things she had to deal with. And also that the staff could be honest with her about some of the issues that they felt were issues to them in terms of communication.
It's because obviously when Jake lived with me, I'd done everything for him, and I think it was hard for me to stand back. Obviously when staff were doing it, they were like, no, I should be doing it, you know what I mean? And I sort of couldn't stand back. But now, obviously, I get on brilliant with the carers, they're like friends. And I've got more trust in them now, because obviously when I first put Jacob into support living care, I was scared in case he didn't do the right thing the right way, and you hear all these stories. And obviously I've come to trust them. Jacob obviously is very comfortable with them, so they've come up like a friend now. I can sleep at night, put it that way. So obviously when he first come into support care, I'm thinking, I hope he's all right. I hope they're doing this the right way. I hope they're not reading him stories like we used to. And I hope they're doing what Mum does, what Mum did, I should say. And now I do feel comfortable. I mean, there's still times when, if I ring up and I think, they're not answering the phone, I want them to answer it straight away. And if they're busy with him, they're not gonna, you know what I mean? And they'll ring straight back, bless them. I'll go, is he all right? Oh, yeah, he's fine, sorry, don't pick the phone up. And that makes me feel relaxed when they ring me and let me know he's all right. They made him more independent. And it's the way they come across. They've got like a lot of time for him. You know, it's just how they are with him. They're just brilliant with him. You know, you can't ask for a better team. So, and I'm really chuffed he's got the team he's got. So.
The final set of clips in this section illustrates the SPELL framework in action for Jacob. And Mel, the service manager, explains just how important this is in Jacob's life.
As a team, we've all worked very hard in trying to make sure Jacob has as much structure in his life as he possibly can. That's been quite a slow process because with his autism we can only introduce things very, very slowly. His behaviours in the beginning were quite challenging for him and for others because he wasn't able to predict what was happening next, and therefore a lot of his anxieties and his frustration came out through his behaviours. You know, the frustration would result in him, you know, throwing things, trying to pull things off walls. But it was really our job to try and find out how can we help him, you know, communicate what he needs to in order so we can help him. It's more diverting Jacob's attention into something, you know, that is a precursor for him that something's going to happen. So the hoovering, for example, isn't about Jacob hoovering in itself, but it lets him know that before you do this, this is going to happen. To Jacob, that means he'll be going out following that he's finished his hoovering and then he'll be going out. Jacob isn't able to end an activity himself. He doesn't know how to do that. So we have to do that for him. But obviously instead of saying, right, come on, that's over, we give a countdown that lets him know that this is about to end. Finding activities that have been suitable for Jacob that he enjoys has been quite difficult as well, because, you know, we tried to plan activities built around what we thought he would like music and you know, singing. But ironically, quite a lot of the places that we took him to that were specifically designed for people with learning disabilities asked him not to bring him back. Because of the behaviours he was displaying at the time. So it's been a bit of a trial and error really. You know, we tried one thing and if it was, you know, if it was apparent that he was enjoying that, then we would step the time up very slowly. And that worked really well actually. So the outcome was he eventually was able to stay and got quite a lot out of it. Again, he has the symbols where he can predict what's happening next, you know, his breakfast, his medication. And again, he's learnt that really, really well. You know, he can pretty much take over from that now, which is really good. You know, a lot of it's learned. He will say it's time for your medication because medication is very important. And then he'll now remove the cards himself and put them back in the envelope. Again, that's been a very slow process. But it helps him predict what's happening next and reduces his anxiety levels. There was a lot of things that were quite apparent that he couldn't tolerate. That again were, you know, causing behaviours. So, you know, if there was pictures, for example, or ornaments or things like that, he would rip them off the wall. So it was, well, he doesn't need them. This is his home. He's telling us he doesn't want them there. So let's not have anything around. You know, so it might not be aesthetically pleasing to some people who come in and think, oh, well, there's nothing here, but that satisfies Jacob. He's happy, he'd rather have it that way. He would repeatedly go around the room flicking switches. You know, he'd go from room to room. And again, the more he did it, the more anxious he would become. And it became quite ritualistic that he'd have to go from one room to the other, and it was really hard to break that. So when we tried to intervene in the best way we thought we could by, you know, again, diverting him or trying to distract him, it didn't work. He would, you know, swear and become quite aggressive. So I asked for a referral for occupational health. There was quite a few adaptations then that needed to be done to the environment in order to help Jacob. And they just fitted lights. The lights come on automatically now when, you know, you walk into a room. So again, that's removed that behaviour pretty much completely, really.